From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Aisha Ashraf. Our top story for today. In a defining moment of the 2024 presidential campaign, Vice President Kamala Harris dominated the stage against former President Donald Trump during their first and possibly only debate on Tuesday. Observers say it was different from the June 27th debate between President Joe Biden and Trump. They say yesterday's debate, marked by sharp exchanges and Harris's strategic provocations, saw her taking control of the narrative early on. The Washington Post and CNN polls show that a majority of debate watchers felt Harris performed better, with 63% favoring her over Trump's 37%. Harris's tactics were particularly effective in highlighting Trump's defensive posture. According to the New York Times, Harris set traps into which Trump repeatedly fell, displaying a defensive crouch as he revisited past grievances rather than focusing on substantive attacks against his opponent. Observers say Harris's body language, including smirks, laughter, and strategic silence, played a crucial role in defining the debate's tone. They often left Trump yelling into the microphone in frustration. Reports from The Guardian described Harris's attacks as hitting Trump where he was most vulnerable. These were on issues of ego and strength, which led him to react with visible anger and frustration. Some analysts call this approach a symbolic castration, highlighting the psychological edge Harris held throughout the encounter. In contrast, Trump's performance was widely criticized for its lack of coherence and preparation. The focus now shifts to the impact of the debate on the election. While Harris's team has expressed readiness for another debate, Trump's camp has yet to confirm their participation. In related news, Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris exchanged sharp criticisms over the ongoing war in Gaza during last night's debate. Trump accused Harris of endangering Israel's existence, claiming that if Harris were elected, Israel would not exist within 2 years. He also reiterated claims that the crises in Gaza, as well as in Ukraine, would not have occurred under his presidency. Harris countered these accusations by emphasizing her lifelong support for Israel and the Israeli people. She stressed the urgent need for a ceasefire and the release of prisoners to end the war. The Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, has sharply criticized President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris for their failure to take a stand on the killing of Ayşe Nur Ezgi. Ezgi was a Turkish-American activist killed by Israeli forces in the West Bank on September 6. She was shot during a protest against illegal Israeli settlements in Beita last Friday. The Muslim civil rights group also criticized the leaders for not reaching out to the family of the activist. CAIR says this contrasts with the prompt outreach to the family of an Israeli-American soldier who was recently killed. The organization is calling on the Justice Department to investigate and hold accountable those responsible for violent crimes against Palestinian Americans. Secretary of State Antony Blinken condemned Ezgi's death as unprovoked and unjustified. Human rights groups, former diplomats, and activists are urging a U.S. federal court to revisit a case accusing the Biden administration of complicity in Gaza's genocide. Previously dismissed due to jurisdiction issues, the lawsuit alleges the administration failed to prevent mass atrocities amid Israel's assault on Gaza. Amicus briefs argue the case is of exceptional importance, highlighting violations of U.S. statutes and the administration's own arms transfer policies. They emphasize the Israeli offensive has resulted in significant Palestinian casualties. Advocates claim the court's decision undermines the rule of law and U.S. credibility. If granted, the Ninth Circuit will hear the case en banc, potentially setting a crucial legal precedent. Israeli forces have killed 27 Palestinians across Gaza, including another devastating attack on a building in Khan Yunis that killed 13 people. The assault targeted a residential building in Gaza, east of Khan Yunis, resulting in multiple casualties and injuries. Also, a fisherman was killed by Israeli naval fire near Khan Yunis' Al-Mawasi. 9 others, including 3 children and 2 women, died in a separate bombing in Jabalia, northern Gaza. Another attack on a residential building in the Nusayrat camp left 4 dead and 11 wounded. The relentless attacks continue to draw international criticism, particularly after the bombing of the Al-Mawasi safe zone in southern Gaza on Tuesday. Amid this turmoil, the UN agency reports efforts to vaccinate Gaza's children against polio persist despite Israeli assaults on health workers and their vehicles. 2 Israeli soldiers were killed when their helicopter crashed during a rescue operation in Rafah. In southern Lebanon, Israeli airstrikes targeted about 30 Hezbollah sites, causing significant damage and prompting reports of buildings shaking. Israel has killed at least 41,020 Palestinians and wounded 94,925 in its war on Gaza. However, the British medical journal The Lancet in July said nearly 186,000 Palestinians may have been killed in Gaza due to Israeli actions. Israel faces accusations of genocide for its actions in Gaza at the International Court of Justice. Israeli officials are urging U.S. lawmakers to pressure South Africa to withdraw its genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice, or ICJ. A leaked Israeli Foreign Ministry cable reveals Israel's plan to use its influence to counter the case, which alleges that Israel's war and violence in Gaza constitute genocide. The cable requests U.S. federal and state officials, along with Jewish organizations, to exert pressure on South Africa. This move comes amid ongoing international scrutiny and criticism of Israel's war on Gaza, which has killed an estimated 186,000 Palestinians, according to the British medical journal The Lancet. Others place the figure at 40,000. A report by Gaza's media office last week noted that 69% of the Palestinians killed by Israel since last October have been women and children. Israel has dismissed South Africa's case as unfounded and accuses the country of aligning with Palestinian resistance. The ICJ's final decision is anticipated to take years, while U.S. political support remains crucial for Israel amidst global calls for accountability. U.S.-made 2,000-pound bombs melted bodies in Gaza's safe zone. Details of the story come right after the break. Stay tuned, and we will be right back. Welcome back. Israeli attack on a so-called humanitarian zone in Al-Mawasi, southern Gaza, on Tuesday killed at least 40 people and rendered safe zones in the region meaningless. Al Jazeera's investigation of the attack suggests the use of U.S.-made Mk-84 bombs. Officials in Gaza described them as so powerful that they melted the victims. They say the 2,000-pound weapons were dropped around midnight on Tuesday on tents housing displaced Palestinians. Rescue teams sifting through rubble under the cover of darkness have been finding victims with severe injuries and dismembered limbs. Witnesses describe the explosions as earthquake-like. International condemnation has swiftly followed, with leaders denouncing the strike on the designated safe zone. Human rights advocates say the incident makes it necessary for the U.S. to review its continued arms supplies to Israel. Harvard University has restored the Palestine Solidarity Committee, PSC's, full privileges after a 5-month suspension for breaching protest guidelines. The Dean of Students' office confirmed the PSC's reinstatement, allowing the group to access campus resources and funding. The PSC, Harvard's sole pro-Palestine student organization, was suspended in April following an unauthorized rally. This suspension coincided with the prolonged protest by a coalition of unrecognized student groups, which faced criticism as an attack on free speech. Despite reinstatement, the PSC vows to continue its advocacy for Palestinian liberation and push for university divestment from Israel. The group promises that registration will not deter their activism against perceived restrictive measures on campus. Nearly 50 million Americans have gained health coverage through the Affordable Care Act, or ACA, marketplaces since 2014, the U.S. Treasury Department reported Tuesday. The latest figures reveal a historic peak of 20.8 million enrollees for 2024, with 18.2 million signing up for the first time since January 2021. In another first, families earning above 400% of the federal poverty level now qualify for ACA premium tax credits. This move has reduced ACA costs by an average of $800 annually for millions of Americans. President Joe Biden criticized congressional Republicans' repeated efforts to repeal the ACA, warning of potential threats to millions of Americans' coverage and increased healthcare costs. The ACA, a landmark reform signed by President Barack Obama in 2010, remains a pivotal change in U.S. healthcare. Dozens of Rohingya refugees held by India in its largest transit camp in the northeastern state of Assam have begun a hunger strike. Indian news website Scroll.in reports that women and children are among more than 100 refugees who have been on hunger strike. The Matia transit camp is located in the state's Goalpara district. The detained refugees include those from Chin ethnic group. About 1.2 million Rohingya have been living in Bangladesh since August 2017, fleeing a severe military crackdown in Burma's Rakhine state. Tens of hundreds of Rohingya are living in India. An Indian court has granted conditional bail to a Kashmiri lawmaker to campaign in upcoming assembly elections in Indian-administered Jammu and Kashmir. The New Delhi court granted interim bail to Sheikh Abdul Rashid, who was elected to parliament in June. India announced three-phase parliamentary elections in Jammu and Kashmir from September 18th to October 1st. The 90-seat legislature was last elected in 2014. Rashid, who has been in prison since August 2019 in an alleged terror funding case, was granted a 2-hour custody parole in July to take the oath of office. Only his family was allowed to attend the ceremony. He has been elected as an independent candidate to the Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly twice since 2008, as part of the party he founded, the Awami Ittihad Party. More than 2,100 environmental activists were killed worldwide between 2012 and 2023, with Latin America holding the highest percentage globally. The new report by Global Witness said an estimated 196 land and environmental defenders were killed globally in 2023 alone. The report found Colombia was the deadliest country in the world for environmental activists, with 79 deaths in total last year. Other deadly countries in the region included Brazil, with 25 killings, and Mexico and Honduras, with 18 each, the report said. Laura Ferrone, senior advisor to the Land and Environmental Defenders Campaign at Global Witness, said the number of killings remains alarmingly high and simply unacceptable. A Swiss appeal court has found Islamic scholar Tariq Ramadan guilty of raping a woman in Geneva 15 years ago, overturning a previous acquittal. The 62-year-old former Oxford professor was sentenced to 3 years in prison, with 2 years suspended. The decision is a shift from the lower court's earlier verdict, which is based on insufficient evidence. Ramadan has consistently denied the allegations, claiming the encounter was consensual and accusing the accuser of fabricating the charges. His accuser, known only as Bridget, testified to enduring repeated sexual assaults. The verdict, announced August 28th but made public today, may still be challenged before Switzerland's highest court. Ramadan's legal team plans to appeal, maintaining his innocence and calling for a thorough review of the case. In a regional hospital in Afghanistan, heartbreaking scenes of severe malnutrition paint a grim picture. A BBC report mentions Amina, who has lost 6 children and struggles to save her last in a hospital in Jalalabad in eastern Nangarhar province. 7-month-old Bibi Hajra, as small as a newborn, is a poignant symbol of a broader crisis affecting 3.2 million Afghan children. These children, ravaged by decades of war and poverty, are often left in dire conditions, sharing beds and enduring silent suffering. The hospital, overwhelmed with 18 toddlers in just 7 beds, can barely keep up. The situation is not a temporary surge, but a continuous reality, with many children, like 3-year-old Sana and Ilham, showing signs of severe distress and malnutrition. The lack of resources illustrates the dire need for urgent intervention. That's all from our Toronto studios. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you news you can trust. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment on what you thought of today's coverage. Thank you. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.